Let's give him the worship that totally belongs to him this morning. Let's welcome him here with us. In your presence, there is freedom. In your presence, there is hope. In your presence, there is healing. Love restores me. I am whole. No matter how far I run, you are with me. No matter how far I fall, your love is everlasting. Your kindness never ends. God, you never leave me. Your presence goes before us. Your glory has no end. God, you never leave me. Let's sing out. In your presence, there is power. Through your spirit, strength will rise. In your presence, there is mercy. In your presence, I'm alive. No matter how far I run, you are with me. No matter how far I fall, your love is everlasting. Your kindness never ends. God, you never leave me. Your presence goes before us. Your glory has no end. God, you never leave me. Be our guide to the end, to the end. The Lord is with me. He will not forsake me. He will be our guide to the end, to the end. The Lord is with me. He will not forsake me. Your love is everlasting. Your kindness never ends. God, you never leave me. Your presence goes before us. Your glory has no end. God, you never leave me.
Good morning, good morning. You may grab a seat. Well, welcome again. My name is Kyle. I'm one of the pastors here. I'm thrilled that you're here. If you're a longtime member of this church family or you are brand new, we're so thrilled you're here. Just this past week, I got a piece of mail that was addressed to you guys. It was a thank you note to Life Community Church, and I just want to take a moment and read it with you. It says this. It says, thank you for being such a great example of living a life of faith. Even an exclamation mark there if you could see it. When I first visited, I had 2 deaths in a 2-week period. You didn't know me, nor did my family members who were tragically lost their lives, but you offered to do their celebration of life for free. Because of your example and the way this body lives, that's this church family lives, thank you for living out the teachings of Jesus. Friends, I just want to say thank you for being the church you are. Maybe you're here and you're the very first time. I don't know what you come in with. Maybe you're carrying something heavy like this person. Maybe you're full of joy. I don't know where you are, but we'd love to connect with you. I'd love to meet you out in the lobby afterwards. We've got Taste and See after the second service where you can come and get to know pastors. Or if you're new or newish, you can just take out your phone, scan this QR code that you'll see right up there, fill out your contact information. One of our members of our pastoral team would love to connect with you. But maybe you're here and you're part of this family. I just want to say thank you. You see, we're able to offer celebrations of life at no charge because you've paid for it. You've paid for it with your volunteering. You've paid for it with your generously giving. And so if you're part of this church family, I just want to say thank you. And if you are part of this family and you want to help move the ministry forward, I just want to ask you to pray. Ask Jesus, how would God have you do it? Maybe you want to continue to give or give more generously to impact more lives like this one. Maybe you want to volunteer and join one of our teams, or maybe when you come here on Sundays, you want to remember to smile and see someone next to you because you have no idea what they're coming in with. And here's the deal. I don't know where you are in your relationship with Jesus, but Jesus does. And he wants to meet you here this morning. Whether it be through interacting with someone else, through singing worship songs, through giving generously, through hearing from God's word. No matter where you are on that faith spectrum, we're glad you're here. And we know that God has something for you this morning. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of God's mission.
You know, as we move closer to autumn, to the fall season, it just seems right to take some time to reset and to refocus our lives. For many of us, if you're a student, you've headed back to school. If you're a teacher, you're doing the same thing. You're back in school, and for a lot of us, it's kind of a rhythm as we move into fall to reset and refocus. And so later this month on the 28th, we're going to be meeting right back here at 6:30 in the evening. It's a Monday night. It's a great way to start off your week and the fall season. And that being, we're going to come, we're going to worship, we're going to pray for one another, we're going to seek God, and we're going to take some time just thinking about what it is to be made in the image of God, what that looks like, what that actually, how amidst all of God's creation, what sets us apart as far as being image bearers of our great God. And we're going to spend some time with that as we worship him. So I invite you guys on the 28th to join us as we bring in this new season with the Lord. And you know, my prayer for us is that as we again reset and rearrange and focus in on the new, that we invite God into that space with us. And so with that, would you guys stand with me as I pray before we head into this song to just prepare us for this moment right here, right now. God, we love you. We thank you that you are here with us. As we just sang, your presence is with us. And God, may your presence not only be something that we recognize, but would change us from the inside out, that we would remember that we are bearers of your image. And if you are someone here in this room who are going, I don't know where I'm at with God, stick around some of these folks that have been loving God for so many years, because they are image bearers of the goodness and the greatness and the light of our great God. Let's focus our attention to our goodness and the light of the world, that is Jesus. Let's give him the worship that belongs to him this morning.
Safe within your name. This we know. the fullness of your word. This we know, this we know. Let's sing it out. Every enemy will flee as we declare your victory. This we know, this we know. I will call upon the Lord, for He alone is strong enough to save. Your shackles are no more, for Jesus Christ has broken every chain. I will call upon the Lord, for He alone is strong enough to save. Your shackles are no more, for Jesus Christ has broken every chain. Oh, you set us free. Oh, Jesus' name will break every stronghold. Freedom is ours when we call His name. Jesus' name above every other. Oh, hail the power of Jesus' name. Jesus' name will break every stronghold. Freedom is ours when we call His name. Jesus' name above every other. Oh, hail the power of Jesus' name. Oh, hail the power of Jesus' name. We'll call upon the Lord, for He alone is strong enough to save. Rise. We'll call upon the Lord, for He alone is strong enough to save. Rise, your shackles are no more, for Jesus Christ has broken every chain. Oh, you set us I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were providing then, you are providing now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You move in power then, you move in power now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were a healer then, you are a healer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were a savior then, you are a savior now. You are the same God, you are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. Now I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Yes, you have. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of
As I step off that stage, I'm on cloud 9. I could just levitate to wherever I'm going next. And 30 minutes later, I hit rock bottom, wondering how did I get here and how do I go from here? How do I go from 30 minutes from the highest heights to the lowest lows? Part of me says maybe there's this spiritual thing that while I was on stage preaching, talking about the love and truths of God, I was soaked in His love and His truths, and it just permeated everything. And then maybe after that, I was alone listening to the lies of the enemy saying, you're not good enough. It's not gonna work. They're just gonna go back to their same life. Maybe it's a spiritual thing, but maybe it's something totally different. Maybe it's a completely physiological thing. Maybe in one moment I'm on stage and there's adrenaline coursing through my body, and the next moment there is no adrenaline and my blood sugar crashes, and I'm like, I just need some sugar as a little pick-me-up. Or coffee if you prefer. Maybe it's not a spiritual or a physical problem. Maybe the problem is me. Maybe I don't have an accurate view of reality to realize that sometimes life will be awesome and sometimes life will be whatever the opposite of awesome is. And I've got this picture that I got from social media that's like, it's always awesome. So what's the problem? How did I get there and what do I do with it? You been there? 6 years ago, I was in a situation in which it wasn't a woo, woo, it was just a pew. And I'm having a conversation on the phone with my therapist, and she's like, what's going on? She's like, how's your spiritual life? Are you talking to Jesus? Are you hearing from God? Is it a spiritual problem? Is it a physiological problem? And maybe you're gotten a little depressed because you haven't been exercising, eating, and sleeping well, and now your body is worn down, and something in your day-to-day routine's gotta change. Or is it something else totally different? Is it, this is a stage of life thing. You are 35 years old and this is just what happens. For those of you who don't know this, I wanna tell you, I learned from, what's his name? Scott Galloway about the algebra of happiness. And then maybe it looks like this graph you're gonna see up here. See, on the y-axis, you have happiness. On the x-axis, you have age. And the research goes like this, that once you get to about 35, life is about as bad as it's gonna be. Why? Because I'm at that stage of life where I'm in that pivotal moment of my career being like, I know I can do some great things, but it's not gonna be as great as I thought it was gonna be. But also I realized I could just kind of skate and go through life and just kind of live a ho-hum life in my career. At the same time, I realized that I don't have the youthful energy that I used to have, and I'm entering a new phase of life with more back problems and going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Maybe it's because I've got 2 young kids at home, and in that time, I'm trying to both be a good husband, a good pastor, and at the same time, I got these little ones who are keeping me up all hours of the night. So I'm sleep deprived, and all they want is more attention, and all I want is more sleep and alone time. Maybe it's just a phase of life thing. But I just wonder, when we find ourselves in these problems, when we're looking at our head and our heart and something just seems off, and we start to wonder, what's the problem? Is it spiritual? Is it physical? Is it my relationship with someone else is off? Is it my expectations and mindset need to shift? What do we do when we're stuck and we don't know what to do? You been there? You see, today what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at someone who found themselves on cloud 9 and then they hit rock bottom. And in between that, we're gonna see how God deals with them. And in that, you might be able to look more clearly and see, well, what is the real struggle going on in my life? Maybe you'll be able to see, hey, how does God work in these things? And let me warn you, God might surprise you. It's genius, but what he does, I guarantee will surprise you. Or maybe it's not you today. Maybe you've got someone in your life who you love who are sitting there where I was, struggling with my therapist, trying to figure out what the right thing to do, feeling like I was alone and disconnected and stuck. And maybe it's not you, but today what God's gonna give you is a word of wisdom that you can take to someone else who's struggling. Or maybe it's not that. Maybe you'll take it, you'll put it in your back pocket, and years down the road, maybe when you hit 35, you know it's coming for you. Love you. This will be a word that God has for you. But we've all got challenges. We all ask what the challenge is and how do I fix it? And today's answer might surprise you. So if you have your Bibles, go to 1 Kings chapter 19. You see, we're in week 2 of a series about a dude named Elijah. Let me recap what happened last week. Last week, we encountered the nation of Israel's divided. Can you relate? There's a northern and a southern, and the northern tribes have begun to worship other gods. And so Elijah comes in as a prophet of the one true God, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one who rescued them from slavery, the one who revealed himself as Yahweh, and will later reveal himself in the person and work of Jesus. This guy named Elijah stands up against 450 prophets of a false god named Baal. It's the Super Bowl of spirituality. It's the rumble in the jungle. It's a winner-take-all, no-holds-barred fight, and whoever wins will be the class of Israel. And in chapter 18, God does a miracle, proves himself to be the one true God. All the prophets of Baal, they cease to worship. They cease to do what they're supposed to do. And in that moment, thousands of people throughout Israel turn from their false gods to that one true God. I can imagine being there with Elijah and be like, Elijah, you just won the spiritual Super Bowl. What are you gonna do next? And this is what he says. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 1. Now Ahab, that's the king, told Jezebel, that's his wife, who he married from another country, who's a priestess in another religion. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, that Elijah won the spiritual Super Bowl, and how he had now killed all the false prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah. May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. Essentially, the queen, the most powerful woman in all the land, says, by this time tomorrow, you're dead. And how does Elijah, the man who just 1 chapter ago was full of faith, he just won the spiritual Super Bowl, how does Elijah respond? Verse 3. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. And when he came to Judah, he left his servant there, went a day's journey into the wilderness, came to a broom bush, sat under it, and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, he said. Take my life. I am no longer better than my ancestors. He laid down under the bush and fell asleep. Hey, Elijah, you've just won the Super Bowl. What do you want to do next? I want to go be alone and ask God to kill me. Huh? What happens? What is his problem? Spiritual? Physical? Mental health? Is the problem relational that he's now alone? What is his problem and what does God have to do about it? Warning, real quick. What we're gonna see is there's a multifaceted challenge that's Elijah has here. So you're gonna see a multifaceted answer from God. So I say that as a disclaimer. We will talk about multiple things that God does, but let me be clear, there's no silver bullets, there's no formula. It's not just one thing. The struggle is real, and so God gives multiple answers. But how does God respond to his super soldier who just won the Super Bowl and now wants to die? What does the Lord of the universe say to Elijah, who's alone in a cave? The walls are caving in on him. This is how God responds. At once, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. Looked around, and there were by his head some baked bread over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and he laid down again. What does the God of the universe say what you really need here? What does Elijah need? Does he need to pray? Does he need to go to church? He needs a nap and a snack. Well, that's not very spiritual. God doesn't he need to open the word of God and experience the truths and hear about your love and your power that you overcome? Doesn't need to go and confront the evil and the lies in his life? Yeah, maybe. But first, what does he need? A nap and a snack. He's like my little guys when they're all cranky and we're trying to reason with them. We realize, oh my gosh, no matter what we do, if they don't get a nap or a snack, there will be no talking to these young children. All the parents of young kids are nodding with me. What is it that God knows that we miss sometime? Why is it that God doesn't show up in a powerful supernatural act, but instead what he does is he shows up as a baker who's like, I'm gonna put this food so close to you, you can reach out and touch it without getting out, and you're gonna have water there. Of all the things I think that describe God, creator, savior, I never put baker on the list, and here he is making some sort of, I hope they're brownies, man, I don't know what they are, but sorry. What does God know that we sometimes forget? You see, God created every single part of you. You may not like that. That may be uncomfortable. But what does that mean? It means that he made you a spiritual being made to connect with him. He also made you a physical person with a body. He's also made you an emotional creature. And no matter how much you try to avoid or deny those emotions, it's part of who you are. He's made you an intellectual creature with the ability to think. It's what separates you from the animals. He's also made you a relational creature, meaning you're made to connect with other folks. And what I want to start here, is with this idea that if God created every part of you, it means he loves every part of you and wants to serve every part of you. And sometimes before you get too spiritual, you just need a nap and a snack. Oh, we'll get spiritual in a second, but I wonder if maybe, just maybe, until Elijah takes a little nap, he can't hear from God. Or maybe until he's gone from alone to hangry to, oh, I feel good again, his brain doesn't quite process correctly. What does God know that we don't? It's interesting as I go back and think about that conversation with my therapist 6 years ago. She's been talking to me for so much time. She's like, Kyle, how is your exercise? Like, I know when I exercise, I'm better, but I'm just not exercising right now. He said, well, Kyle, why don't you try antidepressants? I'm like, well, that's great for someone else. I think I've got other ways I can manage it because I've come this far, been a pretty successful dude. I think I can do it alone. And she said, that's fine. Let's talk about it next week. And the week after, and after that moment, I realized I could not figure this out. No matter if prayer could do it, nothing could change it. And in that moment, while I felt like a failure, I started taking antidepressants because I felt like there was no other way. And very quickly, over the next 2 weeks, my body's just started to get better and healthier. And I wanted a spiritual solution. I wanted to think my way out of it, but in that moment, I had to realize, just like Elijah did, that God has given me a body, and when my body isn't operating the way God has created to do, I am not the best version of myself. So maybe it's a snack, maybe it's meds. I don't know what it is for you. I'm not a therapist, I'm not doing that. But what I'm saying is God's given you a body, and let me just ask you, how's it operating right now? Every car gets a tune-up. How are you taking care of the machine, the body that God's given you? And I think the sleep part is crazy. Because I think the sleep part, like, I grew up in one of those families, like, I'll sleep when I die. You know, you get a badge of honor after you pull your first all-nighter in college, and then you get a second badge of honor when you pull an all-nighter and actually turn in a paper that's readable and you get an A on it. You're like, yeah. But in our culture, I don't know if you look around, but 35% of Americans today are sleep deprived. Well, what's the big deal, right? I'm tough, I can make it through. Yeah. But do you know what happens when your body's sleep deprived? The body that God's given you and made to sleep? I don't know if you realize it, but if you go too long, the same impacts of sleep deprivation are the same impacts of drinking too much. If you look, there's a little slide that'll come up. We talk about this. Again, the CDC has shown that being awake for 18 straight hours is the same impaired equivalent of having a blood alcohol level of 0.05. And when you go to 24 hours of that, It's as though you are over the limit. You don't think clearly, you don't feel right. You're like, I can do anything. And you get yourself in trouble. So let me just stop here. Before we get spiritual, let me just ask you, are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating in a healthy way? Are you exercising? Are you taking care of this body that God's given you? Because we're going to talk about some other stuff first, but sometimes God just knows, don't be so spiritual. Yes, that's your pastor, and that's what God, I think, is saying to some of you. Don't be so spiritual. And this is part of what God has for Elijah. But it doesn't end there. The story goes on, 1 Kings 19, verse 7. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, eat and get up, for the journey is too much for you. So he got up, ate and drank. Strengthened by the food, he traveled for 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. It's interesting. Two things. Let's start with this one. How many times does the angel come to him? Not once, but twice. What did he say? The exact same thing. Get up, eat, get up, and go. And what does Elijah do? He's like, I get up. I'm gonna stay here in my little pity party and stay right here. I wonder if sometimes what we don't need is some new intellectual breakthrough. We just need God to tell us again what he's already told us and we haven't obeyed. Let me talk to some of you who are a bit more mature Christians. You've been around the block. So I'm like, I want to learn more. I want to do more. Show me the insights of God's word and character. And God's like, why don't you just do what I've told you to do, and then I will come and give you more. But he does it in a loving way. He doesn't come back and say, Elijah, I told you to get up. I think he's like this. He says, hey, Elijah, get up. I know you're stressed. I know you're overwhelmed. I know all you want to do is sleep right now. You got that nap, and that's good, but now it's time to go. And now Elijah's desire just to stay there and do nothing and sit there is a sign that there's a bigger problem, that he doesn't have the motivation, the drive, the ability to go and take that next step. Some of you are stuck, and you know what that next step is. And I'm not here to beat you up with it. I'm here to tell you that God loves you enough that he'll come by and he'll tell you again and again and again. He won't push you. He won't force you. He won't overwhelm you, but he will be patient with you. So be thankful when he comes back and says it again, because sometimes you get stuck. And I think it's interesting that God sends an angel. Why? Because he needed somebody outside of himself. Can I tell you, I sit down with folks like you. We'll get a cup of coffee, we'll sit on my couch, and I love to coach and give you insight. And people are like, gosh, Kyle, you are so smart, you're so insightful. I'm like, I know. You must have everything put together. And I'm like, here's the deal. I can look and tell you what to do all day, every day, but when I look in the mirror, I can't quite see it straight. I know what you should do, but I struggle to do it. I'll illustrate that in just a second. Sometimes, friends, we need someone or something outside of ourselves, whether it be a supernatural word from God or maybe someone just coming alongside you being like, get up, let's go. You gotta go to work. You gotta get to that doctor's appointment. You gotta go to the gym. You gotta go to church. You gotta do something. Why? Because if you just sit here and stay here, it will not get any better. And when God brings those people into your life, at that moment, you're probably cranky with them. So go back and say thank you to them. If you have someone in your life who's come back to you and giving you that little loving, get it going, and you were grumpy with them then, by the end of the day today, send them a text, a card, a thank you. Amen? All right, y'all are not loving this. Here we go. And the word of the Lord came to him. What are you doing, Elijah? Elijah replies, I've been very zealous for the Lord Almighty. The Israelites, they've rejected your covenant. They've torn down your idols. And you put the prophets to death with the sword. No, I'm sorry. And the Israelites put your prophets to death with the sword. And now I am the only one left. And now they're trying to kill me. You been there? I am the only one at my job who sees what the problem in this corporation is. I am the only person in my family that sees how dysfunctional it is. I watch this thing on TikTok. I understand family dynamics, and this is a toxic family, and I'm the only one who sees it. I'm half the age of everybody else, but I'm twice as smart. Oh my gosh, it is so easy to look and say, oh my gosh, if I was an elected official, I would do this. Do you know what happens? You become alone, and then you start getting in your head, and you've got all these great ideas, and there's no reality or common sense. Like, that's not that good of an idea. But the more time you spend alone, the more time you're convinced that's a good idea, and all of a sudden you have a delusion of grandeur. Because what does Elijah say? I'm the only one. But is he? Check. Chapter right before, chapter 18, verse 4. When Jezebel was killing off the prophets, Obadiah had taken 100 of them and hidden them in 2 caves, 50 and 50. What? He's not the only one. And later, at the end of chapter 19, God gives him clear. He says, hey. Chapter 19, verse 18. I've reserved 7,000 in Israel whose knees have not bowed to Baal, whose mouths have not kissed him. I'm the only one. And God says, yeah, except for the 100 I've got hidden over there and the 7,000 folks over there. What happens here? Let me tell you this, friends. Sometimes when we get isolated, it messes with our thoughts and we find ourselves in worse places. I saw this during the pandemic, the disconnection and the way it impacted mental health, marriages, and people's faith, and also their trust in each other was tragic. And let me tell you, I don't think it's just a pandemic thing. Let me tell you what else it is. And again, sometimes I think we love getting alone, and we spend so much time staring at that screen that we have no idea what's real anymore. Because I've listened to a source of news that only reaffirms what I already wanted to say. Or I scroll through it, and the social media algorithm is conditioned to give me exactly what I want and exactly what makes me feel good. Because when I'm bored, I can go here and I get a dopamine hit. Woohoo! I feel good again. I get this thing. Oh, look at this! Oh my gosh, my life will be so awesome. In 15 minutes, I can restain this dresser, and everything will be awesome, and I'll have the most Pinterestable house of anyone. Some of you are married to that person. Don't make eye contact. And let me just say this. I'm not saying that social media in and of itself is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not saying technology in and of itself is a good thing or a bad thing. But let me just tell you what happens when you go there. Let me talk science for you. Let me talk about brainwaves for a second. There's a slide that's going to come up, and we're going to walk you through some of these brainwaves. We're going to start with gamma waves, right? The most peaked attention. Imagine fight or flight. There's a bear coming after you. Run! Next, beta waves. Beta waves is when you're in that meeting and you're focused, you're thinking, you're problem solving, and you're really engaged. Alpha is what happens when you are relaxed. It's the moment you step out of the meeting after you finish the task. It's, for me, alpha waves are that moment where I'm in the shower and not thinking about anything, and all of my best ideas come to me. You been there? All right, just me. All right, okay. Then we get into theta waves. Visualization, trance, dreaming. Your brain's wandering in and out of consciousness. That might be that moment right before or after you wake up or go to sleep. It's that moment when, whether you realize it or not, your brain is most influential. Theta waves, this is what hypnotists will do. They'll lull you into this state, this theta state brainwave, and in that moment, they can implant any idea they want in you or any action they want in you, and you'll do it. Why? Because you're the most susceptible, because your brain is not turned on enough to look at that and say, that's a bad idea. Oh, that's probably not gonna work. And in that moment, they hypnotize you, plant something in your head, and then you go on and live it and believe it. I saw one just recently where I saw a hypnotist hypnotize someone and they couldn't remember their own name. Can this be real? Yes, why? Because in that moment where you turn your brain off and you're just passively absorbing, and the problem is, this is how 80% of our time is spent on social media. Most of our time in social media is not, hey, I'm engaged and I wanna learn. It's not, hey, I'm researching something I wanna get better at. It's, I'm bored before I go to bed, so do. Oh my gosh, I'm at the doctor's office and I don't really wanna be here and they're always late, so do. And you find yourself in this highly influenceable state. And what happens, just like Elijah in that cave, we start to lose track of reality. He feels alone. I'm the only one. They all don't get it. Why? Because in his loneliness, he's been able to tell himself some sort of lie that's become so deeply internalized. Friends, I'm not here to tell you technology is evil. I'm not here to tell you that social media is evil, but I'm here to tell you that the way you interact with it, if it goes from mindful to passive, this is where you find yourselves in the trap. It becomes a dopamine addiction, just as addictive it's almost as addictive as almost any substance drug, because you just get the hit and you want it all the time. Then it warps your view of reality. And friends, let me just tell you here, I will never tell you to do anything that I have not done. I will never share something that hasn't been my struggle. So with that said, this one needs a constant disclaimer. I'm not here to hate. I'm here to love you, because I'm here and I'm with you in the boat. And to prove it to you, here's my screen time from the last week. There we go. 2.5 hours a day. Most of it is on YouTube. The second is on TikTok. Social media, social media. I'm not here to tell you that I've done it better than you. I'm here to tell you that I have the exact same struggle. Why? Because every time I go home at night, it is so much easier to go to a social media algorithm that gives me exactly what I want than to be present with either my feelings, my family, or whatever reality is. So I say this not because I've got it all dialed in, but because this is a real struggle for me. So what happens? We start with this thing, Elijah's alone. The isolation leads to this depression. The depression, he's got to eat, he's got to sleep. And then all of a sudden he realizes his loneliness has twisted the way he thinks. And then God comes in. And now in this moment, look what God does next. The Lord said to him, go back the way you came to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. And anoint Jehu, son of Minshi, king over Israel. And anoint Elisha, the son of Shaphat, to succeed you as prophet. Jehu will put to death anyone who escaped the sword of Hazael. And Elisha will put to death anyone who escapes the sword of Jehu. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, whose mouths have not kissed him. What does God say you need? You need a nap and a snack. You need to realize that when you're alone, you're disconnected from reality. And what's the next thing that God gives him? Before he even gives him something spiritual, what does he do? He gives him a people and a purpose. A people and a purpose. First Sunday of this year, I challenged our congregation to something. And then we walked out those doors and someone came up to me and said, Kyle, we need to talk. Uh-oh. Every time someone says that, I'm like, is this okay? Is this good? Is this bad? I don't know. And she says, hey, Kyle, you said that we all need 5 friends and a job. Can you help me find 5 friends and a job at this church? Because you said if I got 5 friends, I got people with me, they know me, they love me, they support me in the good and the bad, but also I need a job because Christianity is not a spectator sport, and I got to join the team. I actually got to contribute to the ministry here. If I'm part of the family, I got chores to do. She's like, I get that. So we met, I introduced them to some people. They joined a small group, and everything was great until she watched her husband experience a near life-taking heart incident. Goes in for quadruple bypass. They think they're gonna lose him. While he's in surgery, her father dies. I'm getting calls, I'm in text, I'm out of town, but I'm like, how can I be there with you? How can I pray for you? What do we do with this? We've been walking with this family for the last 6 weeks through the ups and downs. The God is good and life is horrible and all of this thing. And again, the man, he came out healthy, doing better than ever. But what he realizes, man, over the last 6 weeks, I've been alone more than ever. And what he didn't realize is just as important as it was to have amazing doctors, which we love, just as amazing as it was for him to do his physical therapy, which he's doing twice a day, he also realized what I need to do is I need to get back to that small group of guys that meet with me every single Saturday morning. Why? Because when I'm there, I realize I'm not alone. And what the wife realized was, oh my gosh, I've done everything I can to try to make my life all about taking care of him and his struggle. And if my life is only focused on this struggle and I don't have purpose outside of it and I don't have people outside of it, I get overwhelmed by the weight of it. So on the phone this week, she said, Kyle, I had no idea when you preached that message in the beginning of the year how much I would need it, because that is the answer to prayer that I never prayed. You need a people and a purpose. Some of you are struggling. And when I talk about these funks, this mental health challenge, you realize it and you're feeling alone. Friends, what I want to tell you is you've never got to feel alone. After service, there's people here who'd love to pray with you. Go out to the info table and you can sign up for something called Stephen Ministry. Stephen Ministry is a ministry of folks in our church who've gone through over 50 hours of training to do one-on-one care with you, especially when you're going through a long-term struggle that doesn't have an easy, quick fix. It's someone who's just there with you. Why? Because suffering sucks, but suffering is better when you have solidarity and someone doing it with you, because you need your people. I walked out into the lobby this past Sunday, and all of a sudden there's a group of people waiting for me. Usually there's people waiting for me, but it's never been a group. I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels like it's junior high again. I'm gonna get jumped if I walk over there. I walk in and there's this group of women, and they said, hey, we don't want to know, we're all part of this Thursday small group. And I just want to tell you, this thing has been life-changing for us. And I knew most of the women, but there's two of the women who I'd never met before. They said, you've never met me, but really this small group has been a place where I've experienced grace and truth. They love me just the way I am, but there's enough truth that they push me towards transformation. And you and I haven't met yet, but I feel like I'm part of the family. Not because I know the pastor, but because these people in my small group have become my family. When we say you need a people, that's what we mean. But you also need a purpose, friends. Let me tell you that in your life, especially if you are a Jesus follower, your life is about loving and serving others. That's been created inside of you. The God who made you knows you, loves you. He's given you skills, gifts, and abilities. Like, I want you to do something with it. And when we don't do that, when we don't use our God-given skills and ability to live into our true God-given purpose, what we do is life becomes unsatisfying. So what do? You scroll on social to try and find some sort of satisfaction or dream or goal or dopamine or whatever it is, when God is saying, no, I'll put a mission right in front of you. There's a neighbor who needs to know the love of Jesus. There's a baby down the hall that needs to be held, and so mama can have a break for just an hour here while she knows someone who loves their baby is there taking care of them, so mama or daddy could come and be here in the service. Some of you realize, oh my gosh, I love this church, but I gotta find my purpose in it. Let me tell you, friends, our lives are better with you as part of our ministry team, and your life is better when you're on a ministry team. I'll tell you, some of the best relationships you'll ever form are with folks with whom you've been in that foxhole serving for a greater purpose. That's why some of you today, you don't know anyone from your high school except for the folks who played on that sports team with you. That's why some of you, the friends from college, were not the ones you actually hang out with the most, but it's the ones who went through the hardest things with you, and now you come out of the other side and that bond is there. What does God say? You need a nap and a snack. You need truth that breaks through the loneliness and the lies, and you need a people and a purpose. But that's not it. So one last thing. What does God do? Verse chapter 19. The Lord said, go out, stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord. The Lord is about to pass by. Could you imagine? You're Elijah. You feel alone and depressed in this cave. The walls are shrinking in on you. The stalactites and the stalagmites, they're coming in and they're crushing you like the jaws of life. And it seems like every ounce of water that drops off that, it feels like it just is overwhelming you and continues to just beat down the lies of the enemy, the depression, the loneliness, the struggle. And in that dark place, all you do, God says, I'm gonna be right out there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Could you imagine what it's like for him? Then, the great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak out from over his face and went and stood before the mouth of the cave. And the Lord said to him, what are you doing here? I think if I was Elijah, I'd want this supernatural wind that catches my attention and is so powerful it can even destroy rock formations. Even though I live in California, part of me about that earthquake is like, oh, there's something going on here. Or that fire, oh, that's power. He just experienced the miracle of fire. That's what I want. But what happens? God is not in it. Where is he? He's in the whisper. And the problem for me with God being in the whisper is my life is too loud. I have too many people telling me what to do. I have too much screen time that distracts me. I don't feel comfortable being alone for even just a moment because my own thoughts creep up on me. And in that moment, I don't want to be alone. I want there to be so much noise canceling in my life that it cancels those noise and those lies and anxiety and depression in my heart. I want that all to be canceled out by whatever distraction I can get. But the problem is, when I've got those noise canceling things in my life, I can't hear the whisper of God. And let me explain why God whispers, why he's not in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire. Love, Kelly, can you come on up here for a minute? Give my lovely wife a round of applause. Come here. She hates being on stage, but she loves me, so she's got a deal. She's like, twice a year I'll go on stage. Thanks so much, baby. I love you. So, this is the love of my life. She knows that. And when I want to communicate with her, I can go, and if I whisper, I love you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Thanks for putting up with me. Let's go on a date. She can't hear a word of it. But what we can all hear are the loud voices, the lying voices. What I want to tell you, the loudest voices in your life are almost always the voice of the evil one, the accuser, that look at you and say, you're not good enough. You're always going to be defined by that worst thing you did. You're in this situation because it's your fault, what you did, and you're stuck with it. The lies of the enemy are so overt that it's hard not to get overwhelmed, and they become so loud that even when everything else is shut down, they're still ringing in your own head and in your own heart. But what does God do? When you feel alone and you feel isolated, what the God of the universe wants to do, he wants you to know, it says, this is how close I am. I'm close enough to touch you. I'm close enough to come and say, I love you. I love you more than I have words to say. And that no matter what happens, good or bad, I'm here with you. And I know everything else wants to distract from this love, this presence, this connection. But even when you're in the cave, even when there's lies, even when there's struggles, even when you don't know what to do next, just know that I am this close, close enough to whisper my words of life and love and truth. So in this moment, when God says, I'm close enough to whisper, the question is this: will you allow yourself to be quiet enough to hear the whisper? Because if the worship team turned up the music, you couldn't hear my whisper. If you're scrolling through social, you can't hear his whisper. So can you be okay with enough silence in your life that you can hear his whisper? Because in that moment, not only do you get to hear the voice of God, you get to know that he is close enough to you. Thanks, love. Grab a seat. So Elijah's so depressed, he's suicidal. Where does God start? You need a nap and a snack. Not very spiritual, but he loves every part of you and has made every part of your life to thrive. Some of you, the loneliness has created lies and disconnection from reality. He says, instead of that, try being connected to a people and a purpose. People with grace and truth to speak into your life, but also so you feel like you're going somewhere and you're not stuck because you got purpose. But also, are you willing to quiet yourself enough so that you can hear the whisper of Jesus? Last week, we talked about praying short prayers, 1-sentence prayers, 2, 3 sentences top, regularly over and over to retrain. We're gonna take you to the next step today. What we're gonna do is we're gonna learn how to listen to the whisper. But let me tell you, the first thing you've gotta do to hear the whisper is, so in this moment, as we wrap up, we're just gonna take a moment, 3 minutes of nothing but silence. For some of you, silence feels deafening and anxious and you'll be squirming. That's okay. For some of you, like, this is awesome. For some of you, you're gonna be distracted by thoughts. That's fine, just notice them and let them pass away. But here's what I wanna tell you. In my life, my rhythm is this. I'll go into a room, I'll set a timer for 5 minutes, I'll put the timer on the other side of it, and I'll just stay there for 5 minutes. Why? Because I believe God's gonna speak to me there sometimes. But the primary reason I do it is because I know that later in the day, there will be a whisper, and I wanna train myself to be attuned to silence so I can hear it. So friends, this morning, maybe God will speak to you. Maybe this will be preparation for learning how to do it. But in this moment, I'm gonna invite you. Go have a seat. Oh, you're already having a seat. Put your feet on the floor. Do what you need with your hands. For me, I love this posture of openness like this. You can lean forward, you can lean back, breathe in your nose. And as a posture that says, God, instead of being noise canceling, I want to listen to the whisper. Let's put our hearts, our bodies, our minds in a posture to hear from Jesus as we sit in the silence together.
Whether it be the valleys that we're in, the mountaintop experiences that we're in, there's something about quieting our hearts and listening in to the still small voice that continues to reach out to us through it all, through life's ups and downs. My hope and prayer, our hope and prayer, is that God is speaking to you and is reminding you that you are His wonderfully made creation. Would you stand with us as we reach out, as we cry out to our great God this morning?
your body and your blood you shed for me. This is how I fight my battle. There's a table that you've prepared for me in the presence of my enemy. It's your body and your blood you shed for me. This is how I fight my battles. And I believe you've overcome, and I will lift my song of praise for all you've done. This is how I fight my battles. 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 This is how. In the valley, I know that you're with me, and surely your goodness and your mercy follow me. So my weapons are praise and thanksgiving. This is how I fight my battles. And I believe you've overcome, and I will lift my song of praise for all you've done. This is how I fight my battles. 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 This is how. God surround me. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. But I'm surrounded by you. It may look
Oh, it's good to fight our battles with God with us. We have a few quick announcements for you. We have some baptisms that are happening next week. So if you're like, I'm excited, I want to make that step, I want to allow Jesus to work in and through me, we would love to get connected with you. You can connect with us either at the table, the 411 right out front, or with any of our pastors or anybody that you see around. You're like, I want to get baptized. We will get you connected and would love to have more people experience and proclaim what God is doing in baptism. After our second service today, we have Taste and See, which is an invitation for all of you who are like newish, old, and haven't ever done it and want to hear what we say and want to come hang out with us. It's an invitation for you to hear our pastors' hearts about our different areas of ministry, to get a tour of our building, to see the things that we are about, to hear what God is doing and stirring in this place. Would love for you guys to come join us around 12:15 to join us for that as well. And finally, this is Danielle. Everybody say hi, Danielle. So Danielle came on a missions trip with our students, and that has been a thing that sparked some good stuff. And we want to invite you to something that we're doing. So
Yeah, so last time I was up here, we talked about how great the high school mission trip was. How we made an impact, how we met a pastor who had been praying for this staircase for his church for 7 years, and the high school team was able to come alongside him and help build that staircase finally after 7 years of prayer. So we had such a good time. We are going back and we are taking all of us with us. It's an all-church mission trip. So that means adults and kids and teens and tweens, everyone. My whole family is gonna go. It is President's Week. It's February 18th through 23rd. We're going back to Baja Bounds. We are going to stay in the Baja Bound beach houses. They feed us really well. We are going to be building a house. There is no construction experience necessary. All right, I have none. I'm gonna do great. So you all can do great. But it's one of those rare opportunities where we can make a difference in families' lives. We're gonna build a house. Currently, there's a huge waiting list and for Baja Bounds in these houses. And so we're gonna help a family get out of their makeshift plywood tarp house that they're currently living in and provide a house with indoor plumbing. And so it's gonna be amazing. So if you have any questions or concerns, I have flyers, I have a sign-up sheet. I would just love to talk to you out in the lobby.
Yep. So we will see you out in the lobby. Give her a round of applause. Love that. And give the trip a round of applause. It's going to be an awesome time. So if you're like, I don't know, I'm not sure what God's going to do, I don't know how I'd pay for it, I don't want to do it, those are all questions we want to answer in the lobby for you. So come join us out there. But would you go this morning? Would you know that God is with you in those still small moments? Would you listen and would you hear and would you be ready to respond when he calls? In his name, amen and amen. Go with God.